Tonight we're launching a special series called Beyond the Destruction, marking 10 years since the Moore tornado. Every night this week we'll be sharing stories from that day and the rebuilding and recovery after.
The EF5 tornado took 24 lives, including 7 children at Plaza Towers Elementary, and left a lasting impact on the community and also us here at News 9.
I remember May 20th.
I remember May 20th.
I still remember May 20th.
I remember May 20th. I remember May 20th.
I remember May 20th.
I actually think about May 20th a lot. There are certain images that come back to mind just randomly. My name is Jen Billings. I was executive producer the night of that tornado. And you see all this rubble and destruction and dust. I think it was destruction we just didn't expect until you really see it.
Ben Minty, I was an assignment editor, May 20th, 2013. There were so many, it was so obvious how many of them there were and how much damage. It was the first look at just how bad things were.
It is still causing major damage here.
Yes, that day was definitely not like most days. One was just the devastation that we all witnessed. Jen Hargrave, producer. That was the first day that we had what then was new technology, which were backpack live units.
How could something like this happen? How could the damage be this widespread and this devastating? I'm Carl Torp, and I was a reporter in the field May 20th, 2013.
144th and Robinson, and here's this neighborhood again. We have destruction everywhere.
For those minutes, we get there, and we see nothing but homes destroyed. There's a fire in the background.
It's chaotic out here.
And people are coming out of their homes in an absolute daze. I mean, when we first got to those neighborhoods, there were no police, there were no EMSA, no ambulance service, no firefighters, no nothing.
Carl and I first roll up, and it's just like, what do we do? And then all of a sudden you just see nothing. Everything's just wiped out. I mean, I literally paused to not grab my camera because I was just shocked at how much nothing was there. Well, I mean, something was there, but absolutely nothing was there. My name is Andy Hargrave. I was with Carl Torp, one of the field crews following May 20th tornado. It's called a Teradek, and it basically used cell phone data. So I'm like, okay, I'll hook it up and I'll plug it in and just flip the switch and pray to God that they're getting a signal back.
All the people that are badly hurt by this storm. Kelly and Amanda?
So I don't keep a lot of my notes from stories, but there was something about the May 20th, 2013 tornado that I just could not throw away these notes. I'm Amanda Taylor, and on May 20th, I was a news anchor. Plaza Towers Elementary looking for kids, search and rescue. Search and rescue, dozens of search crews searching for 40 to 50 people.
And so as the tornado passed, people are just running toward the schools, running through the neighborhoods where the damage had occurred. I was John Mills. I was studio cameraman back in 2013.
My name's Jim Gardner. I'm the helicopter pilot reporter. You know, when you're on something like that, you hope nobody has died, but you wonder how many has died because you're looking at all the destruction and devastation that's around you.
You know, and just hopefully we didn't lose any lives here, but
that was very, very difficult to talk.
Even now, you know, it's really it impacts you when you think about those kids. It's hard. My name is Dana Hurtnicki, and on May 20th, I was reporting. But I do remember that was a really hard day for me. I cried a lot. Whew. Usually it doesn't impact me like that, but it was just really, really hard working that day.
That's why I don't look at this. It's just, I'm sorry. I knew I was gonna have trouble with this because it was just so sad.
As with so many tragedies that happen here in Oklahoma, the community rallies, they come together.
You know, I would say we talk a lot about the Oklahoma Standard. I saw it that day in a way that I had never to that point seen it before.
And there were children, you know, yay high, walking up and handing off mason jar banks full of nickels, dimes, and quarters and pennies and saying, here, I need to help.
So we just put out the call, you know, if you want to bring blankets, non-perishable food, water, just bring it to the station, bring it to News 9.
We had a mile long, at least a mile long line of cars for people dropping off supplies.
We call it the Oakland Standard, right? But it's really just the human standard. And it never shines brighter than it does in those moments.
It's hard. It was horrible. It was horrific. It was a heartbreaking storm. And here we are 10 years later.
Gary Cahey owns Pat's Towing.
Moore's just always been my town. That's where I grew up.
He named his truck PT for Plaza Towers, the school where his daughter Sienna was on May 20th, 2013.
It's moving more easterly than northeasterly now.
You made mention of where the tornado was at and the path it was kind of taking.
Gary was at work about 2.5 miles away.
I didn't really say much to my wife or anything else. I just grabbed the vehicle and took off for Plaza Towers.
The sirens started going off and we were all just rushed into the hallways into the fetal position with textbooks over our heads.
My intention was to get to Plaza, get my daughter, and get out.
But when he got there, it was too late. The tornado was already nearly on top of them. He rushed into the school and found his daughter and her classmates lining the halls.
And I'm like, that's not going to work with this. I knew the 99 storm, and this was as bad as it. And I told them to get the kids in the bathrooms.
Gary says the violent tornado hit about 3 minutes later.
He had me back into the fetal position, and then he had kind of laid on top of me as a layer of protection.
We hunkered down in a corner. And I probably smothered her, but I was protected her.
As we know, that school took a direct hit.
At one point, I remember one of the kids saying, "Is it over?" because it had quietened down and calmed down where we were at. And I remember looking up and things were still spinning and the storm was still on top of us.
A large brick hit Gary in the head while a piece of granite fell on his ankle. But finally, the tornado passed.
I remember coming out of the bathrooms and the entire hallway that we were in was just completely gone. There was just rubble everywhere and the entire neighborhood was gone.
After helping pull kids and teachers out of the debris, Gary and Sienna walked to their house and discovered that it had also been hit by the tornado. Finally, the father and daughter made it to the Warren Theater, and Gary was able to get a hold of his wife.
Once I got my daughter to my wife, I collapsed. And they took me to the hospital in Norman.
7 children died in that school that day, but you have to wonder, how many more might have also lost their lives if it wasn't for Gary?
If he hadn't had come, would I have been here today?
So you probably experienced everything in a matter of about 45 seconds. I mean, it was a mile wide, or a little less than a mile wide when it was at your house. Well, here it is. I mean, this is where it started and where it ended, right?
A decade later,
because I'll never forget that moment. This is always weird for me to see. Like, this is my spot. Like, when I see where it's caved in over here, that's where my knees were.
the memory of what happened,
This is where I was pushed down, where my ribs were injured.
in this bathtub,
Winds are approaching 300 miles per hour, you guys are.
remains as miraculous
I've always said it was God's hand just holding us down because everything around us blew away.
Right.
But we felt pushed down.
as it did, May 20th, 2013.
That was
Glass.
found in your purse.
This
that
was
was
in my
down with
purse.
the kids.
Right.
Your intuition was you put everybody together in the bathtub the day before. All the girls are in their helmets. You're in the bathtub, and less than 24 hours later, that's going to become a reality.
Right.
Amber Kriesel was home with their 3 daughters, 6-year-old Kaylee,
In my brain,
It's kind of like a scene out of a movie.
And 4-year-old twins, Sophie and Zoe.
We just blocked it all out for the most part.
Power flashes, huge chunks of debris coming out of the sky, now coming into more.
I think we were hearing, it was probably around 3-ish or just after 3, and it was like they were saying there was a tornado emergency. I'd never heard that before myself, so that really got my attention.
So she gathered all 3 girls and put them back in the bathtub again. Kaylee still remembers parts of that day.
I remember being in the bathtub on a quilt, just playing on my leapfrog.
I was right here at that spot. I couldn't see the shape of the tornado when I was driving across, so I was closer than this picture.
Again, I'm at Broadway at 134th and more, and it looks like it's trying to... As the tornado neared their home, Amber's husband, Nathan, was rushing home from work.
And I get to the door, and it's locked. So my thought is, you know, I'm outside, tornado's coming, what do I do, you know?
So I went to the bathroom and put the mattress over us and got down, you know, we were all in position, all ready, and then the doorbell rang.
Fortunately, she opened the door.
How long did that take?
It seemed like a long time. It may have been a minute, I don't know.
So then we all got into position again. We were singing, and I think he had shared the story about, you know, the Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, and that the Lord was with them, and that that's kind of what we were going to be doing, and that the Lord was with us, and we would just trust him for whatever was going to happen.
As the storm was approaching, we could hear the hail, you know, we could hear the wind. It was pitch black. We could hear things hitting the house. It was starting to, things cracking, breaking. It was getting louder and louder and louder. My wife said that the storm is here.
It got really loud, and then I wasn't looking at anything in particular. I was just trying to concentrate on the girls in the tub. We had them lock arms. We told them to stay really low, to not let go of their sister.
We could hear things starting to rip apart, you know. We're down, we're praying, we're calling on the Lord, Lord Jesus, and then all of a sudden, it went from dark to light.
So without looking at anything, you just could tell, like, it's like that means there's no walls, that means we're outside.
The intense wind was coming, and so we're screaming, you know, Lord, lift it, Lord, lift it. I can't hear her, she can't hear me. We're right next to each other, but it's so deafening loud.
It just sounded otherworldly, you know, like something larger than life.
It felt like we were moving, even though we didn't move at all.
I tried to open my eyes, but that was pointless because, you know, just the intensity of it.
So in my mind, I was just like, we just have to stay together. You know, it just, if we hold on, you know, a little bit longer, a little bit tighter, you know, and as long as we're all here, you know, it's gonna leave.
As tornadoes come and go, finally it went.
Hopefully this is the end of this ordeal right here. It's totally roping out at this time.
And all of them were fine.
And I remember Nathan stood up and got out on the other side of the tub, and it was crazy because there used to be a wall there.
Right there's hitting Plaza Towers, and there it's hitting us at 321. This is, I'm guessing, about 2 minutes after the tornado hit us and left.
Pictures Nathan shot immediately after, proof of the unbelievable.
This piece is our house right here. Those boards sticking up is where we are at. That is the bathtub.
A church group would later label the bathtub the Ark. Family pictures and that bathtub hang proudly in the Creasels' new home. A constant reminder that even through the worst storm, they never let go of each other or their faith.
I feel like that was the day when I really 100% knew that God was real.
Just look at that, all the debris around that thing.
Oh my gosh.
A school in Moore has been hit, an elementary school.
We believe it is Briarwood Elementary School. That's the word we're getting. That's going to be
almost immediately after the EF5 tornado hit Briarwood Elementary in 2013. Little 7-year-old Isabella Rojas meticulously told us what happened.
We laid down under the desk.
And then whenever I saw all this rain coming on the window, the tornado went in, and I was so afraid that I was hanging on to one of the desks, and then I fell back, and then all the dirt started getting in my eyes and on my clothes. That I really got stuck because all the desks were on top of us, and the teacher got stuck.
And our teacher having her leg stuck in all the rubble.
Today, she's 17, a junior at Southmore, and once again telling us about that day.
And she managed to just say, like, everyone, like, scream for help, just calmly though, scream for help though. And we're like, okay. So we start screaming, and we do hear footsteps and voices, and we're like, there's people, scream louder, and we're screaming, and someone, I think it was the firefighters, end up coming to dig us out of the rubble and takes us up one by one.
Hello. So the idea is just that everyone's in here, but they're out. This time at our downtown studios. We're gonna go downstairs, and then we will go look in the studio for a minute. Every year since the tornado, Isabella's mom has marked May 20th by taking her daughter to do something special. Another monitor we can stand in front of. We'll do weather from there.
It's really cool.
Yeah, it's awesome. During severe weather, I'm right here. So we have a straight line of vision to each other. This year, she asked if she could come visit News 9 and meet our meteorologists.
Bella, David Payne, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. See you on TV all the time.
Isabella's story is one few people will ever experience. It's impacted her emotionally.
For the longest time, she would have to have the light on to even walk, from her bedroom to the bathroom, which is like 3 feet.
But Isabella's mom found her a therapist and made sure she stayed with her classmates.
I didn't want Isabella to have any behavioral issues and for another school to be like, oh, don't worry, she was in the tornado, it'll be fine. I wanted her to be at Briarwood. Everybody at Briarwood went to the tornado.
I don't think it would be the same if I moved somewhere else, because no one would have known what it was like.
My name is Isabella Rojas.
Rojas, how old are you?
7.
7, what grade are you?
First.
First grade. Your teacher okay?
Yes, she's okay.
Isabella still keeps in touch with the teacher that was pulled from the rubble, and many of those same classmates will graduate together next year, bonded by a storm that ripped everything apart.
We want to hear what the teacher says about where the kids were and how they survived this thing.
Lacey Swope, Oklahoma's own News 9.
The EF5 tornado that hit several more schools back in 2013 sparked demands then to put storm shelters in all Oklahoma schools. Now, 10 years later, only on News 9, we are researching how much progress has been made since Plaza Towers.
Sydney Engel, Antonia Candelaria, Emily Knatzer, Kyle Davis, Janae Hornsby, Christopher Legg, and Nicholas McCabe. 7 third graders who did everything they had practiced, seated against a wall inside Plaza Towers Elementary, bracing for a monster tornado's impact.
There was just absolutely no hope of that school surviving.
Those 7 did not survive. Now, 10 years later, Christopher's mom, Danny Legg, still keeps in touch with many of his classmates.
I hope they find inspiration and not sadness.
If Danny's name sounds familiar, it's because she has also become a force of nature. For the last 10 years, Danny, you have been one of the loudest voices, one of the loudest advocates for getting storm shelters in schools. What drives you?
That week after Chris died, I didn't want this to ever happen to another person's kid.
She fought at the state capitol and worked on a ballot initiative to put shelters in every school in the state.
Today, Take Shelter Oklahoma began collecting signatures.
When that failed, she began visiting individual districts.
I put my grief to work. I didn't want to sit still.
We reached out to every school district in the state to see what progress has been made since 2013. Out of the 531 districts and tech centers statewide, 40% of them responded to us, including the 9 largest in-person districts in the state. That accounts for about 60% of all Oklahoma students. We found that through Danny and others' efforts, 65% of districts have added more protection for kids. Based on our sample, before 2013, only 25% of schools had adequate shelter. Now that number has jumped to 57%. What is that like when you hear from a school, okay, we're going to put in a storm shelter? What is that like for you when you know that?
Honestly, it's like finally.
The deaths of Christopher Legg and his classmates have weighed heavy on Moore Superintendent Robert Romines.
This last year, our third graders that we lost at Plaza Towers would have graduated last year, and so that one was hard. That one was hard.
Dr. Romines had only been on the job as Moore's superintendent for about a week when the 2013 tornado hit. At that time, the school district had storm shelters in 2 of its schools, and that was only because FEMA paid for them after the '99 tornado. Superintendent Romines says the mindset was that tornadoes in Oklahoma, for the most part, happen after school hours.
We know a school in Moore has been hit, an elementary school.
2013 changed the way you looked at how you prepare for kids' safety.
It changed our tabletop discussions, it changed our approach, and it changed a lot of decision making in regards to safety.
Conversations about storm shelters in all of Moore schools happened immediately, and the community decided to fund it.
That was probably one of the highest percentages as far as rate passage for a bond issue in district history.
Now in Moore, all the district's 35 schools have shelters. As for the other schools that responded to our survey, 76% of them have enough space to shelter the entire student body. The impact of that protection became clear this past April when a tornado caused extensive damage to the Shawnee High School. But a safe room, added through a 2016 bond issue, was still standing strong.
The great news was that room itself is completely intact, so we know if people had been in there, they would have been safe.
But according to our sample, about 10% of schools have no storm shelters for students and staff. And that includes Geary in Canadian County.
If something were to happen during school right now, we're simply hoping that everyone makes it through that safe, and that's kind of scary.
Right now, all 260 students have to walk outdoors in the storm to get to their safe spots in 3 separate buildings, funneled downstairs into locker rooms and classrooms.
Inside of the old gymnasium area, there's a downstairs portion under what used to be like a stage. We are underground at this point, but this is the space that we have for all of our middle school and high school students.
That's about 140 kids plus staff. Superintendent Sean Buchanan says it's a squeeze.
Directly above us is a wooden stage, and that's really all the protection from the outside that we have. So obviously in an event where you have twisting winds of hundreds of miles an hour, that is not safe for our students. And so we're bringing them to this space because it's the lowest space in our school, but at the same time, it's actually not a safe space.
Buchanan says the district tried most recently last August to pass a bond issue for a new school building where all the kids would be under one roof with access to FEMA-rated storm shelters. But nearly 65% of the town voted against it due to the cost of property tax increases. Now the district is looking for new solutions.
It's not a problem you can just throw your hands up and go, well, it's okay. You know, it didn't work. You know, this is something we have to figure out for the benefit of these kids.
Kids like Danny's son.
Is your work done?
No. Once every school in Oklahoma is sheltered, I might retire. Right now, we're not.
And the fight to expand storm shelters for students does not stop here in Oklahoma. In fact, Danny is now involved in helping other states like Kansas and Texas.